Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Fall 2022 National Cyber League Award Ceremony. My name is Emily Calandranis, and I'm going to be the MC for this evening. We're excited to have you, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to move on to our special guest. We are going to be sharing who won the Rate My Setup winners, and then we're going to transition to the time you've all been waiting for. So we're going to be sharing the top individual and team winners. We are then going to share a little bit about Spirit Week and talk about our supporters and partners, and then we're going to wrap up the award ceremony. Directly after the award ceremony, we're going to have the Q&A with Game Creators event. So we absolutely invite you to stay and if you have any questions at all, you can certainly put them in and ask the question box. We're going to go ahead and move on to our special guest for the evening. We are so excited to have Dr. Janell Straach. She has a diverse background, including academic and industry experience. She's currently a faculty member at Rice University in Houston, Texas, and has taught at the college, university, and corporate level. Janell's passion is recruiting and retaining females into technology careers, and she also is an integral part of WiCyS. So thank you so much for joining us today, Janell. And whenever you're ready, take it away for our fabulous audience.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me. I am honored to be here. Such an exciting time. So you might be asking, why her? Why is she here? I'm going to give you 3 reasons. Reason number 1, I am a faculty member and I have students that compete in the NCL competition, and it's a fabulous experience for them. So I'm here because I love to celebrate. I want to celebrate every student that does something and achieves something. And NCL is such a great way to do it. So that's my first reason for being here. My second reason is because of Women in Cybersecurity, better known as WiCyS. I am the chair of the board for the WiCyS organization. We are 6,000 members strong, and our mission is to recruit, retain, and promote women in cybersecurity so that we'll have more women in the field. Now, you may think, well, this isn't for me unless I'm a woman. You're wrong, 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 wrong. We need allies. It's going to take all of us to make a change, to move the needle and have a more diverse workforce in cybersecurity and to fill all those jobs. I mean, you have chosen an area that has a huge gap for jobs. So we need a diverse workforce and we all have to work together. So one of the ways that I do that is through my work with Women in Cybersecurity. Now, the even cooler part and what I really love is we are collaborative with NCL. So we have a collaboration where we work together. NCL has a great way to get people involved in cybersecurity, and we want to make sure more women get involved, and they do too. So we work together to bring more of you in. In fact, at our annual conference, which will be in March of 2023, NCL has agreed to put on a CTF just for us. So we're going to have our own conference CTF by NCL, and it's a great opportunity to try it out. It's safe. You're going to have folks to help. You get to be with people and actually work on it. So it's just a great way that we can work together to recruit, retain, and promote women in cybersecurity. So that was reason number 2. Now, reason number 3. I've been in technology careers for, well, a lot of years. We're just going to call it that. So what advice would I give you? What, from those years, I'm not going to say the actual number. What does it take to be successful? The number one thing it takes is you have to be a lifelong learner. You are not going to be done when you get out of college. You have to continue to learn. You have to learn every day, and you learn from what you do. You learn from what you don't do. But that is the base knowledge and the base way to be successful in a technology career, and especially in cybersecurity. We have to stay ahead. We can't just rest on our laurels and say, okay, we know everything. We did it. No, we have to continue to learn. So that's the first thing of how to be successful. The second thing I want to tell you is if you are doubting that you belong in cybersecurity, you're wrong, 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 wrong again, because you do belong. So just remember that as you struggle and you think, not sure I can do this, you can, and you belong. And one of the ways that you can help is to find your tribe. Find people who will help support you, find a mentor, find colleagues. It doesn't have to be someone above you that will help you as you navigate your career and as you look at, do I want to stay in cybersecurity? So it's a great way is to find your tribe. Find people who will help you, you help them. And really going back to item number 2 of why I'm here is that's what WiCyS is all about. WiCyS is about finding your tribe. So be a lifelong learner, find your tribe, remember that you do belong. And then the fourth thing a piece of advice I can give you is learn from your mistakes, learn from your failures. They're not failures. They're opportunities to do better. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I had never failed an exam until I got to my PhD. And I failed my first exam in a very intense class that is only for PhDs. And I was devastated. I had 2 choices. Choice number 1, I could say, yeah, okay, PhD isn't for me. I'm going to give up. Choice number 2 was to say, how can I learn from this? How can I decide I'm going to do better? How can I decide I'm going to tackle that next mountain? Because lifelong learning and being in technology is about tackling every mountain. You tackle one, you tackle the next one. You may fall down when you're climbing that mountain, but you get back up and you're ready to climb the next one. Because every time you think you've climbed a mountain, there's another mountain. You have climbed a mountain by competing in this CTF. So I challenge you, keep going, do the next mountain, don't give up, and help us fill that workforce gap. So Emily and the NCL team, I thank you for inviting me to share my story and kind of a little bit about what I do. So I'll give it back to you.
Thank you so much, Janell. Those are truly motivating and uplifting words, and I know our audience absolutely appreciates you. I'm excited to see you in March for the WiCyS conference. All right, so we're going to go ahead and see if we can get David back on, and hopefully we're good to go. We'd love to hear just some opening remarks from David, and then right after that, we will see who won the Rate My Setup tournament.
Hello. This is me without feedback. Yay. So yeah, just want to welcome everybody to this event. It's great to see everybody here, and I absolutely loved seeing everybody participate in our first Spirit Week that we will talk a little bit more about after the awards. So if you didn't participate, you'll be able to learn more after we go through the awards. And I do want to echo what Janell said about community. Joining a community is important, and that's exactly what we are designing with Spirit Week and NCL. We will also talk about, if you don't know, we have NCL Discord set up as well. So what we want to do is keep this community moving. I know it's a little weird to, have a community where you're actually competing against each other at some point, but I think that also will bring you guys back together as well. So you will learn from each other is the whole idea behind the continuation of NCL during Spirit Week and on Discord. One other thing that I want to mention before we even start the award ceremony is I do want to recognize all of you for all of your hard work. I know how many hours you put into this, and I know when I ask students, my students at least, how many hours did you work? I don't ask them, how many hours did you work during the weekend on NCL? I ask them, how many hours did you sleep over the weekend for NCL? And that's usually just measured in a few hours at best. So again, thank you and welcome, and let's continue the ceremony and the awards.
Terrific. Thank you so much, David. And with that, we are going to move on to the Rate My Setup tournament finalist. So I'm going to ask if we can have Hushie joins the stage. And Hushie, let us know what went on with the Rate My Setup tournament. What did you see in Discord? Share a little bit about the entries, and then we will move right into the winners.
Okay, first I'd like to say thank you everybody that's joined the Discord and that participated in the Rate My Setup. All of you did an amazing job with submitting your pictures of your setups. Some were curious, and that's okay. Different is good. It's always good to be different. You don't ever want to be the same as anybody. You always want to be a snowflake. So that being said, it was a very hard decision for the player committee members that had to choose the people that went into the brackets. And I appreciate all of the voting and the activity from you, and I hope to see it keep going. Now let's get to what we got narrowed down to, thanks to y'all's voting. And Emily, could you give me the slide with our second and third place first? So in our second place, we had the CS Live. That was a big popular one. And like I said, I appreciate all of the photos. It was a very hard decision, and I appreciate all of the players voting, because some of these were really tough it got really narrow too toward the end. And in third place, we got Pink AF, and an honorable mention to the rest. Especially my grandson, thank you very much. Anyways, CS Live, you'll get, Emily, could you please remind me what the prizes are?
Absolutely. So second place will get a $100 Amazon gift card, and third place you'll be receiving a $50 Amazon gift card.
Thank you, and congratulations to CS Live and Pink AF. Now, drum roll, please. So our big winner was one of my favorites, actually. It was not the scorpion chair, though. I'm sorry. I thought it was going to be my chair, but it was zigzag lights. We saw this one coming, though, didn't we, y'all? And first place gets, I'm going to mess this up.
$250 Amazon gift card.
Congratulations, Zigzag Lights. You did an amazing job. And I also want to say, with regard to the Rate My Setup tournament, I appreciate everybody going in and posting more pictures of your setups, and even giving details of what your specs are and what equipment you had, because honestly, that's kind of helpful to other people who are trying to build a system. So you help just by participating in this and contributing what your specs were. Thank you very much to all of you. And if you guys want to see us do more things like this in the future, please join the Discord and let us know. We're happy to do things off season, so that way you guys still have that interaction from us. We're more than happy. Ask us questions. You want to see a new tutorial from Franz? He's gotten really good at those. So yell, let us know what you want to see. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Hushie, and thank you for being so awesome as a moderator in Discord. So if you don't know who Hushie is, go to Discord. You will know very soon who she is. She's wheeling and dealing in there, has some really great information to share. She's a wonderful mentor and certainly can guide you through anything Discord-wise for our channels and servers. So thank you so much. All right, so now we're going to go and transition to the top awards for the evening. So we are going to begin with top individuals, and then we will go into the top team winners. So I am going to go ahead and introduce once again the NCL Commissioner, David WiCyS.
Hello, I'm back again. So yeah, this is definitely not a reveal, because I think most of you have seen the individual boards, but this is definitely, we want to recognize once again all the hard work of all of you, and especially our top place finishers. So for third place in our NCL individual competition, we have Jacob Elliott from the Sands teams. And Jacob, this is Jacob's 4th season competing in NCL, moving on up the board. Congratulations, Jacob. And that might be a little foreshadowing for the next category. We'll see. All right. In 2nd place, we have, it's coming, Andrew Effenhauser. And Andrew is a high schooler. So I definitely want to point that out, that Andrew from high school came and beat out all of our other college students. It's amazing work, Andrew. This is his 3rd season competing in the NCL. And if you haven't picked a college already, I'm a professor at Chico State. We'd love to have you. I'm sure you've already been approached, but I thought I'd at least throw that out there. So congratulations, Andrew. Keep up the good work. You've got many, many years of NCL ahead of you. So it's going to be amazing. And for 1st place, we had Chandi Kanhai from Rochester Institute of Technology. Congratulations, Chandi. I know this is your 3rd season competing. Hopefully many, many more after this. I don't know. Are you going to hang up the hat after you made it to the top of the board? We'll see. But congratulations on this major accomplishment. I don't know how many hours you slept. I'm guessing maybe 1 or 2. But that is pretty impressive to make it to the top of this board. Congratulations. Okay, let's move on to top teams, because this is definitely the big reveal here. Not everybody knows what team finished in the top few places. So we're actually going to do top 5 places. I know people maybe saw the leaderboard an hour before it went dark. So things moving around a little bit. So this will be very interesting. So without further ado, let's start with our 5th place team. And our 5th place team is from Texas A&M, Ret to Rev. Here's their picture. Very interesting, very creative picture, but you wouldn't expect anything less from a 5th place NCL team finisher. Congratulations, Texas A&M. Also want to mention they did get 2,650 points with an impressive accuracy of 72.5. Congratulations, Texas A&M. And for 4th place, we had Sands.edu, Sentinels Team 2. There is their lovely Zoom picture. I'm sure that's how they worked together the whole weekend solving these. Should point out here a 96.69% accuracy. Amazing. Way to go, Sands team, finishing in the 4th place. Thank you. And for 3rd place, we had Bay Cyber Attack from City College of San Francisco. They had a 93.4% accuracy, very impressive, with 2685 points, so 2,685. And if you notice, if you look back to our 4th place team, you would see that it was pretty darn close there. 4th place, I think, had, 2670 to 3rd place, 2685. So very close. Very close competition there. Congratulations, Bay Cyber Attack. Okay, moving on to 2nd place. We had Sands.edu, Sentinels Team 1. Beat out Team 2. Congratulations. They also had a very impressive accuracy of 94.4% with 2,750 points. So you guys can see how close the game is. And once again, a very nice Zoom picture. Very nice, guys. Okay. Shall I do my official drum roll for 1st place? Okay, that's enough. All right, 1st place. We had Florida Institute of Technology, FitSec, the big shebang theory, and with what looks like a very morbid picture, but as I've been seeing in the chat, everybody knows that there was a big Taylor Swift theme, and that's what they jumped on for their picture. Apparently that was in a Taylor Swift video. So not only finishing in top place, I'm also going to give them top credit for best team photo as well. And if you guys aren't noticing, do you guys see what their accuracy was? 100% accuracy. Can't really get much better than that. Congratulations, Florida Institute of Technology. And congratulate all teams that did participate. If you guys didn't see your team name up there this time, there's always next season, and I'd love to see your team up there next. So again, congratulations. Thank you everyone for your hard work, and thank you for joining our award ceremony. Congratulations, all teams. All right, back to you, Emily.
All right, so hopefully everyone can now take a
can't hear you.
Whoop. Can you hear me? Yes. Thumbs up, you can hear me? I got some nods. All right, great. So hopefully everyone can take a little bit of a deep breath now. I know a lot of people were anticipating these results. So hopefully you feel good about the results. You're excited about next season. And we really are so proud of everyone, individual top teams. Even if you weren't in this particular deck, you all have done such an amazing job. And really, the reason why we did Spirit Week, and you're going to see in the next few slides, is to celebrate your accomplishments for this particular season and to have different ways you can be involved with the NCL community, not only in the competition space. So there's a few things I'd like to share with everybody, just as a fun recap of what we've done this week, particularly for Spirit Week. So at the beginning of the week, we started on Monday with the Rate My Setup tournament. And Hushie just gave us those winners, but it was really exciting to see the different people entering their photos, the voting, and it was fun to see just really wild things. Like you can see, I don't even know what you call it. It's a little Nintendo thing. I know, guys, I'm not techie, but it's in a toaster oven, so that means something. That's kind of funny. And Hushie had mentioned also her grandson had entered his setup, and so we had his cute face right there. So I know she's really proud, and we were excited to see his entry as well. We had NCL game night this past Wednesday, which was a lot of fun. And the faces that you see here represented our coaches, alumni. We had partners. We had Cyber Skyline staff. We had players committee members, and everyone came together to do a really fun virtual scavenger hunt. We had a great time. We had some laughs and some real fun competition as well. On Tuesday, that was more of our career prep day. And we had our recruiter pitch day where we had MasterCard, MITRE, CrowdStrike, CipherTech Solutions, and Tanium join us. And they gave some really fantastic speeches about their companies, as well as internships and entry-level jobs that are available. It was a really powerful session, and we made some really wonderful connections for our student players. Yesterday, we had two fantastic speakers for our campfire stories. You can see here, it was a lot of dynamic information. We had Min talking about how he rickrolled his high school, which is a really fun story to hear. And then, of course, we had Serena on the right-hand side, who was sharing about what it's like getting into the workforce. And you really don't have what we call imposter syndrome yet, because you don't even know what to imposter. You're so brand new, but you have those feelings of just being so green that you're not sure where to turn for information. And she really gave some awesome insight into what it's like, and to not be scared, just like Janell had mentioned, to make a tribe, to ask questions. It could be your friends or coworkers. People are there to support you. And she gave a really wonderful talk about just that. So with Spirit Week coming and going, and it was something that we were really proud of to see how it went this week. We had some fantastic supporters. Many of them are on this call and on this award ceremony this evening, but we just have a list of everyone who stepped up, volunteered, joined us, supported us, encouraged us, and ultimately really believe in you all, our student players. So thank you so very much for everyone who gave your time this week. And this really was a labor of love. These things took time to plan internally and to meet with our external partners. So every single person on this list, you really made such an impact, and we're so grateful for your support. And speaking of support that is continuous and we are so appreciative of, we have our fantastic NCL sponsors, CrowdStrike, CompTIA, and One in Tech. They allow us to have really fantastic programming and different initiatives that really allow us to focus on the mission of supporting our student players and getting them into internships and entry-level jobs and getting them into the cybersecurity workforce. So thank you so much for these fantastic sponsors, and we are excited to continue to collaborate and support our student players. So now, before we wrap up for the award ceremony, we have Franz Pear, who's going to share a little bit about the spring 2023 competition dates and a little bit about the NCL community. Franz?
All right. Thank you, Em. And I want to actually, I'll say an extra thank you for everything that you've done to help us get Spirit Week off and running. It's been a fantastic week filled with amazing activities, and it's been great to actually interact with each other. Even though NCL is a fully virtual competition, being able to have all these amazing interactions, being able to play games together, to be able to hear people's stories, to be able to go and hear from the amazing partners about career opportunities, all those different activities really make the community something that's meaningful and something that provides a lot of value to everyone and really focuses on that goal of supporting students getting into the workforce. So I wanted to just talk about the next season dates because we finally wrapped up this season and we want to take a look into what we have for next season. So registration for the spring season of 2023 is going to open January 30th. So only, it sounds like it's, it's next year. It's actually only about 2 months away, which is exciting. And we hope to see you all back. Registration is going to be open for about 2.5 months, and then we're going to have our practice game March 20th to March 26th. The individual game is March 31st to April 2nd, and then we've got the team game April 14th to April 16th. And then, as we usually do, we have the gym opening way after the individual and team games. So even after you've completed all the games, if you want to go back in, you want to practice, you have the ability to do so. I also want to take a little bit of time to really thank everyone here, everyone within our community. I've had the pleasure of being involved in the NCL Games for almost 8 years now. And what has been the most personally satisfying part of being in NCL is just being a component in the journeys of so many students as they go from education into the workforce. And our community is filled with so many different people. We've got the coaches, the student players, the partners, and supporters, our alumni and other professionals who just support that mission, the NCL mission of preparing the next generation of cybersecurity professionals and really helping bridge that gap from curriculum to careers. How do we actually make sure that our students are successful? And everyone that's part of that community is helping to support that mission in their own different ways. And so thank you for being a player. Thank you for being a coach. Thank you for being a supporter. Thank you for being an alumni who's always here to give back to the community. And with that, I will pass it. I will get us kicked off with our next our next segment, which is the Q&A with game creators. So we're going to do a little bit of a transition right now. I want to thank everyone here. Once again, thank you, David Zychek, NCL Commissioner, for announcing the winners. Thank you, Janell from WiCyS, to talk about inclusion, finding a tribe, and really reinforcing that everyone belongs within this community. And we're definitely excited to be part of the WiCyS conference next year. And we're excited to run the CTF there and help even more women take advantage of CTFs and build their skills. So I'm really excited for that. Norma, thank you for sharing the winners of the Rate My Setup tournament. The Discord community right now is alive and well, is really excited. There's a lot of buzz in there. If you haven't checked it out yet, please click on that link, join the Discord. Norma's the moderator, and it's great to have her step in and help us there. And once again, Emily, thank you for organizing everything and making this such a successful season and a successful Spirit Week. All right, I'm gonna get everyone off stage right now, and we're gonna swap in our guests for the Q&A. So thank you once again to our guests right now for participating in our award ceremony, and we'll see you all next season. All right, it looks like we've got all of our guests on stage here. The chat is going wild. Everyone's excited to see Toby in face to face in the flesh here. So I just want to get us started off by introducing the team that we have here. So in our bottom left here, we've got Toby Lin, CTO of Cyber Skyline. Top center, we've got Connor Moaning on our engineering team. And we also have Tristan Messner in the bottom right here on our engineering team. And Toby, can you please introduce our special guest?
Yeah, so really excited to also have Chris here from CrowdStrike. Chris is a manager at the CrowdStrike Gold Standards team. So I'll actually have Chris introduce yourself a little bit and talk about exactly what it is you do at CrowdStrike.
Sure. Thanks for the intro, Toby. And it's great to be here talking with everyone tonight. As they said, my name is Chris Hosmickle. I manage the Gold Standard team at CrowdStrike. You can think of us as kind of a white glove implementation and MDR service. So we both help customers set up the CrowdStrike platform when they purchase it, as well as remediate all the threats that are found in their environment for a certain period of time. My background, I started out as a security analyst after school, kind of worked my way up through the MSSP ladder. That's where you're providing security service for external customers. Was a SOC manager for a few years, and ultimately the director of security operations at an MSSP before joining CrowdStrike. Very happy to talking with you guys tonight, and look forward to the discussion.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris. So you might be wondering why we have Chris on tonight. Did he create some of the challenges? Unfortunately not. However, what Chris is going to do is help us understand how to some of these challenges connect to some of the on-the-job skill set that is very much so in demand, and help you all understand sort of how can you take some of these skills that you're gaining in a CTF and translate that into some on-the-job skill sets, and really help you all understand that you can go out today with a lot of the skill set that you have acquired in the NCL, in your classrooms or in your extracurriculars, and really start your cybersecurity career with that. So with that in mind, let us get started on some of the Q&As here. Well, super happy and super excited to answer all of your questions. Franz, do you want to kick it off for us? And the infamous Franz, you are still muted.
Classic. Okay. So I just want to remind you all, we have the Ask a Question feature at the bottom of the screen. You can use that to put in your questions. Also, please vote on which questions you want answered, and that will help us prioritize and make sure that the most popular questions are getting their screen time. So with that in mind, I've got our top question here. Dora from Discord is asking for a little bit of the methodology on the Mercury Lotto web application hard challenge. And they're talking about that they were having trouble getting the date injection working to de-randomize the ticket target. And they were also asking for details on how the pseudo random number exploit was supposed to go.
Yeah, thank you, Dora, for that question. So on that particular challenge there, that one was really to get you all to start poking at the web application in a significantly more sophisticated manner than perhaps the easier and medium challenges in that category was doing. So in that particular one, I'll kind of go through what the flow there is, what the intuition there might look like. So if you've been a longer time player of the NCL, you'll kind of start to actually understand that some of the questions that we ask in the challenges, they're not just to be asked for the sake of asking it. We do ask a lot of those questions as sort of a hint towards the next step there to take. So in that particular challenge, the very first question that we ask is actually, what is the web server that is hosting that particular page? And so lots of people will find that the runtime that is hosting the page is Node.js. With that in mind, that is the hint towards sort of the solution there. So with doing web app testing, a lot of the times, the very first thing that you should almost always do is look at /robots.txt. That is usually the page that the web developers generally don't want any web crawlers, any bots on the internet to be poking at. It may contain either sensitive information or it might just contain boring information that they do not want web search engine crawlers to actually index. So that's usually a good starting point to sort of see what's there. And you'll see that in that particular challenge, robots.txt actually contain a file listed in there /server.js telling web crawlers to not touch server.js. So, and you can try to actually access server.js, and you'll see that there is specifically some mitigation against your ability to access that. However, again, like I said, the very first question is actually a hint towards some of the next steps that you could take there. So if you know that this particular web server is running Node.js and that there is the server.js file that they explicitly do not want you to be touching, what are some other files that may be commonly associated with, say, Node.js, for example? And the most common file outside of, say, server.js or index.js that you could try is package.json, which contains all the package information that that particular web server may be using, third-party libraries, any dependencies and whatnot that they might be using. So for that particular challenge, once you identify package.json, you can actually download that file, and within it, it actually contains the very specific third-party library that it is using for that pseudo-random number generator. From there, you can do some more targeted poking at the web app, and you can kind of start to identify what the range of values that you'll see from the target number of tickets that you need to purchase for that lottery. And then through that, you can identify also that the date is the determining factor to how that target value gets generated, meaning that this is a seeded, deterministic pseudo-random number generator. So with that, some additional poking, you'll start to see a range of distribution to form around the target number of tickets to purchase. And you can start to guess that it could potentially be somewhere between, say, 0 to 5,000 is the range there. And then you can utilize the pseudo-random number generator that is provided and utilize that to try to solve the challenge by regenerating the target number of tickets that you need to purchase. So that's sort of the overall flow of it. There's a very, very much more extensive version of this documented on our Slack channel in there. If you're not already on Slack, go to cyberskyline.com/Slack and you'll be able to access that immediately. So with that being said, hopefully that answers your question there. Again, feel free to take a look at the longer discussion on Slack there as well. So this is, again, one of the ways that you would approach a penetration testing sort of situation there. And with that, I want to ask Chris, actually, sort of some of the penetration testing work that maybe some other teams at CrowdStrike or even your team might be doing, and what are some of the very relevant skill sets that you need for that?
Yeah, so first off, at CrowdStrike, we do actually have a red team that does that exact thing, largely to determine and poke and prod where are the weaknesses so that the customers can then go patch whatever holes they have. On our side, where I work and where I've worked most of my career, it's on the other side. How do you not necessarily prevent, because I think you all are probably aware by now, you want to prevent as many attacks as you can, but really what's most important isn't even preventing, it's having the awareness that when an attack happens, you're able to actually catch it and respond, not necessarily prevent it. So with that in mind, let's look at it this way. We're talking here about how you attack this web server. Think about it on the other side. How would you be able to piece together what happened? If you had to look at logs, what log sources could potentially detect this, and what are those tools? How would you configure them to stop this potentially? And how would you, as an attacker, think that the blue team is going to defend against this? Right. So we actually do something very similar. We put candidates that apply a CrowdStrike through a Cyber Skyline challenge, and they go through logs and actually try to piece together an attack. So in this case, I know robots.txt was something that was brought up. There are events that you can see, and sometimes in your sim, if you're forwarding all the logs over, it'll actually show you accessing that file. You can see if you're modifying it, if you're moving it. There are ways to piece together the puzzle on the defensive side as well. So try to think of it from both perspectives is something I would encourage.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that.
All right, and then the next question that we've got, also from Dora from Discord. What's the coolest challenge that you all have come up with that didn't fit into one of the categories that we have in NCL, and so it had to be passed up? So I'll leave that to anyone.
Wow, Connor and Tristan, do we actually pass up on any particular challenge this time around?
Not this time around, but there was like an OSINT challenge I had that I don't think got put into NCL.
You want to talk about that?
I live near like one of the cryptid places and like so it's this like tiny town in the middle of nowhere that has like a bunch of the entire town has just accepted that their identity is that of this cryptid. So there's a coffee shop that sells cryptid themed cookies, and I don't know if it actually got put into a game or not, because like I went there and I took a picture of the cookie I ate.
So that's actually some of the fun behind the scenes of how we make some of these challenges. A lot of the times it's actually us experiencing something either casually or out somewhere, we find something interesting, or a lot of the times it's actually we encountered this as a potential vulnerability that we're seeing out in the wild, or we're seeing maybe some vulnerability disclosure that has brought up this particular scenario into the limelight, and then we really try to capture that and repackage that so that you all can get a chance to interact with some of these things. In the past, for example, we've done lots of the some of the latest and most spicy security vulnerability that's in the news. We've seen earlier this year in the spring season, we replicated Log4j as a vulnerability there. Last year, we did the pseudo privilege escalation vulnerability that was present. The years before that, we even have done things such as, actually last year, we also did Polkit as a vulnerability there as well. We've replicated cloud-based breaches such as like a misconfigured S3 bucket. So a lot of what we try to do and create is either based on literally personal experience, either for fun or personal experience that we've seen something being exploited, and also just whatever is in the current news right now. And I know especially at places like CrowdStrike, for example, you all see all kinds of various different kinds of attacks on a daily, if not hourly basis there. So being able to stay on top of all of these things is super important. And that's kind of what we try to do in creating these challenges there. Connor, did you have something that you had, or?
I'm not sure like exactly fits the question. There's definitely some challenges that I wanted to get done that were pushed back. So like can't talk about them because we're going to put them in future. But yeah, it's just current news and like current exploits are super cool to do because it's topical, and like a lot of the big things like Log4j, for example, like spread everywhere. Like even non-technical people know about it. And so doing stuff like that's really cool. But
Yeah. Yeah, so something like the Log4j, that one probably was the one that hit the hardest in I guess like recent memory. So it was really funny actually when that vulnerability actually first came out. We all looked at ourselves and said, "We're not running any Java, right? Like we're okay from this." And then we decided, yeah, we're okay from this. And then I think maybe I don't know, 12 hours later after we said we're okay from this, we then realized, hang on, guys, we do actually run one Java app and we are impacted from this. We need to go patch that very quickly. So that was an especially I don't know what's the best way to describe it. That was an especially interesting one for us to handle in terms of just all the vulnerabilities that pop up day in and day out. I know for a lot of places, I mean, like Chris, was Log4j like especially disruptive for you all's workflow there as well?
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, on the internal side, we were well prepared and have a pretty robust infrastructure team. As a security company, we have to.
Yeah.
But when Log4j came out, you got to think, guys, there's a lot of different ways that this impacted us. We have an incident response team that gets bombarded with inbounds of all the customers that are getting breached by this. We have an endpoint recovery service that will actually go in and fight. If somebody's exploiting Log4j and doing damage, they'll go in and try to remediate and fight and push those bad guys out. Then there's services like mine too, right? Like where we're there, where customers maybe aren't impacted, but now you've got the board of directors' attention and they want to make sure that they're not going to get hit by whatever the next big attack is. When these big things come out, that's when the pocketbook opens up and that's when they start buying security tools and services like mine. And we'll go in and help set them up for success, make sure they're protected against whatever the latest attack is, and hopefully set them up so that they'll be protected against whatever comes out in the future.
Yeah, so that's actually like one very large pro tip in both doing well in the NCL and also just doing well in the professional world period is to stay up to date on some of the latest security news, right? Because not only will you be setting yourself up for success just going into the security industry and working on these problems, if you're also participating in the NCL, hint here is that, like I said, a lot of the scenarios that we try to create do replicate some of those real world vulnerabilities or incidents that do happen. And that is very much our intent in making a lot of these things just more immediately accessible to all the students out there that may be like, oh, I want to be able to see if I can exploit the Log4j vulnerability, but doesn't necessarily have the time or resources to set up a test environment, for example. Again, that's really what we're trying to do here. So excellent. Let's go on to the next question, Franz.
All right, we've got a question from Jay Hillman on Discord. They're asking for tools, methodology, approach, solutions to getting started for the enumeration and exploitation. Number 3, the password manager challenge from the team game.
Yeah, so also a excellent and phenomenal question there. So everybody's focusing on the super hard challenges there, which is really great, actually. So for that particular one, for those folks who aren't familiar, that one implemented a custom instruction set architecture effectively, and the binary that you were provided was a virtual machine effectively that executed files that implements that custom instruction set architecture. Now, the instruction set architecture isn't particularly complex. In fact, it actually mirrors most of the instruction set that we are familiar with in the x86 or ARM world. So for that particular one, you need to first understand what are the various different instructions that do exist in there. One of the best ways to do that is by both executing the file and also doing some static disassembly on the binary file. So there's 2 ways that you can go about approaching this. And personally, I would recommend a combination of both of these because just doing one or the other can actually make it really difficult for yourself. So the very first thing I would recommend doing is decompiling the binary that you're provided, because when you just have a simple binary, it's all machine code at the end of the day. It's not super usable for you. So if you're able to convert that back into either some assembly instructions, or even better, if you're able to use like a decompiler that will give you sort of what it imagines as the original C source code, it is going to be super helpful. There's 2 particular tools that you can use to do that. There are things like Binary Ninja, for example, that's super popular that people like to use. I know Tristan actually really loves Radari too. And Personally, I would recommend people to go with Ghidra. So that particular tool is something that was open sourced by the NSA, very specifically from the team that does reverse engineering at NSA. And it's really, really powerful and robust. And it's completely open source. So why not? So for that particular challenge, like I said, if you dump it into Ghidra and then you're able to use its decompiler to get back, again, what Ghidra imagines as the original C source code, it'll actually do a lot of the heavy lifting for you there already so that you can start to understand what are some of the control flows going through and where are some of these different code snippets stored. For that particular challenge, we actually intentionally made it slightly easier in that the instruction set is all stored as effectively a single structure, sort of all together. And we even left in there what each different instruction means. So we didn't try to strip away that. So you have to figure out based on the code, is this a add or is this a multiply instruction? We actually left a lot of those artifacts in the binary itself. So once you find the block that basically defines all of the instructions and what the opcodes for them are, you can actually then just do effectively traditional reverse engineering, being able to read some assembly code there, for example, and then see these, it's adding these two values together, it's multiplying these two values, or maybe it's doing some bit shifting. A lot of these operations aren't super difficult. So if you're able to actually map them out and then recompute some of these values, you are able to then effectively reverse engineer what the provided binary there is doing. So that is sort of the high level overview of how to engage in that particular challenge. Generally speaking, what I tell everybody when approaching reverse engineering challenges is that you need to be decently familiar with some programming languages. You need to be decently familiar with assembly instructions. You do not need to be an expert at it, but if you have no idea how to recode, for example, you will be at a really bad starting point. If you don't understand how assembly instructions work, for example, again, it'll be at a really bad starting point. A lot of it is actually very straightforward. It just seems very daunting at first. And trust me, when I first learned reverse engineering, I looked at my professor and I said, "You're crazy if you think I can do this." So, but through some practice and through some sort of like small case studies that you do yourself personally, and then you can get to understand how to convert, say, C code into assembly, and how to then convert assembly code back into, say, C code, and what that instruction is doing there, for example. There's a really cool website that I always recommend to people, which is this particular website that I posted in the chat right there. It's GODBLT. So some people just pronounce that as like Godbolt. I have no idea how it should actually be pronounced, but the cool thing about that particular tool is that you can input some C code and it'll spit out the assembly code for you. And then you can actually see which section of the C code maps to which specific assembly instructions. So using that, you can start to better understand how are some of these assembly instructions being generated, and then how you're able to then take that and reverse engineering it back as well. So that is personally what I would highly recommend doing in terms of getting started for especially these reverse engineering challenges.
All right. And Dora's got a lot of questions. Dora from Discord. Dora asks again, which challenge from this season is each person most proud of developing or thinks was the coolest to develop? There's also another part of it was greatest disappointment. But I'll let you all choose which one of those you want to take.
Yeah. Connor and Tristan, do you want to get started on that one?
Biggest disappointment for me was the PHP challenge, because PHP is kind of a pain, and there were some hiccups along the way. Other than that, I don't know if I have a favorite this year. I definitely have a problem child this year, though.
Every time in the past. I think one of the ones I'm proud of, I guess, I don't know if proud is the right word, it was just fun to make, was the SQL injection in the individual game, the clue board. I just had way too much fun making that. I don't know if proud is the right word, but it was just fun to make.
Yeah. So for me, I guess, so if you aren't aware yet, or if you haven't figured it out, anything Taylor Swift related this particular season has something to do with me. So the Taylor Swift song in the password cracking, the Taylor Swift steganography challenge, that was also me there as well. So I just thought it was really fun, especially because obviously if you're living under a rock, her latest album came out around the time that the season was happening, actually. So it just became really topical for us to incorporate something fun in there. So a lot of what we try to do is just, again, try to incorporate things that are topical, relevant, and maybe what's on people's mind. For myself personally, I'm pretty sure for a good solid chunk of time, my playlist was only Taylor Swift, and I say that completely shamelessly. So that is probably the one that I had the most fun developing. And disappointment-wise, I don't know necessarily. I think we did have a lot of teams actually give us some very solid feedback on the UDP scanning challenge, in that they weren't able to get the port number as easily. So for us, I think we overestimated how easy level of a challenge that one would particularly be. Because for that particular challenge, by the way, for the folks who may not have gotten the UDP scanning one, there's actually a really useful Nmap flag in there, which I believe there's actually two that are really useful. Number one is --open, which will tell you which ports are specifically open and doesn't even show you the closed ports or the filter ports. And the second flag in there is min rate, which will give you the ability to specify basically how fast Nmap scans. And so a lot of folks were saying, oh, we were scanning for 4 hours and we got no ports out of it or whatever. I totally understand that. For us, when we were creating it originally, we thought that people would be able to pick up on something like min rate, for example, in order to scan it more rapidly. That I think is probably the biggest disappointment, I guess. We just thought way more people would be able to get that particular challenge than we had actually anticipated, than we had actually ended up getting. So that would probably be the only biggest disappointment for me.
Toby, you mentioned the Nmap scanning. I'm curious with with CrowdStrike, Chris. Do you all get involved in a lot of the scanning of customers, customer services and devices, or are you typically coming in after all of that's already been done?
Yeah, so again, depends on the team, right? So we have a red team that will definitely be doing that. I believe they develop their own tools as well. They'll use what's off the shelf as well as build their own as they're doing their penetration tests. We also, as part of compromise assessments, will sometimes do that as well to go back and see if a customer's been compromised in the past. What me and most of the teams in my services division do, though, is actually catch when pen tests. I mean, we actually caught a pen test today where we saw somebody trying to execute. We had a notepad spawning a command prompt and then trying to reach out to a foreign site. But either way, we're more on the other side. So we're actually watching at a process level as stuff executes, looking for indicators of attacks. Fortunately, the Falcon platform, which is what CrowdStrike is built on, will do a lot of that detection for us. We then have to do the analysis remote into systems and perform remediation, whether that's removing binaries, scheduled tasks, registry entries, things like that to remediate the systems for customers. We're more responding. So when somebody goes and runs Nmap, we can stop whatever it is that they're doing or help consult with customers to make sure it doesn't happen again.
You mentioned spawning the notepad.exe. Are there other than like notepad and calc.exe? I'm wondering, like, are there other common programs that people are spawning to, like, when they get the command execution on a Windows machine?
So one that I think was pretty cool, we saw somebody put a fake Spotify in a Spotify directory not too long ago. That one was pretty cool. Some of the more advanced nation state actors get really tricky and make their stuff look, they actually will go get their files signed by whatever the big producer is. Like, we've had fake antivirus before There was a semantic signed. It's called. They have SEP is what it's called, semantic endpoint protection. They had a binary that was signed by Symantec that was actually doing bad things, and the customer thought it was scanning their computer for malware. In reality, it was the malware. So you'll see all sorts of crazy things going on. And the thing is, these are all companies that all of us know, right? That's one of the cool things about being a service provider is you're actually working with, like, right on the front lines of all the stuff you see on the news. A lot of these big brands, you may think, oh, they're big, billion-dollar companies. They've got this all figured out. The truth is nobody does, man. We're all on the front lines learning this together. Every day is a new battle and a new challenge. And it's fun.
Yeah.
You're always learning and adapting to whatever a new day brings.
Yeah. So, Chris, one of the things that you actually said earlier, I wanted to go back and touch on, which is you had mentioned that if somebody starts like an Mmap scan, for example, y'all are able to detect that and normally be able to stop that, right? Things like, and what about things like directory scanning or just like lots of like brute force attempts that ends up against, like, say, a customer network? You all will usually be able to detect those things, right? Excellent. So, everybody, this is the reason on why we tell you all that in web app challenges, you may not use automated brute force tools. Because if you are trying to be a good pen tester and you want to fly under the radar, you really cannot go onto a customer network and just start hammering it with requests, because people like Chris will show up and then stop that immediately, right? So any I guess I feel like this is counterintuitive to your job, but any advice for flying under the radar, Chris?
Yeah, you want to look as much as you can like a normal user. That's really the simplest thing. You don't want to do anything that's going to stand out or be different from the normal patterns of business, right? So whether that's actually getting real creds, that way you can directly impersonate somebody else, whether that's getting direct access to a system, physical access, those sort of things are going to cut past a lot of the security controls that are in place. If you don't know what the entire security stack is for an environment, I would recommend looking into that, understanding how many layers there are that you're actually going through when you get into somebody's network. It's not like it's just the firewall. There's a lot of different tools that are having eyes on every single piece of data that's flowing through a network, every single process that's running in an environment. Some environments are more secure than others, though. So some of them might be able to get away with very simple attacks like that. But if it's someone who's invested even moderately in security, most automated tools are going to get caught pretty quickly.
Excellent. So there you
Sorry,
go,
I don't know if that
everybody.
answered the question.
No, this is perfect. This is because I think a lot of folks were asking us actually for a while now. People were asking us, "Oh, why can't we run automated tools against like the web apps?" So it was really that's kind of more of like a design decision on our part. We really want to encourage people to be able to do web app testing without necessarily relying on a lot of these automated tools, and to be able to understand how does that exploit actually get discovered, how do you go about poking at a system, and then essentially pretending to be just another standard user. Nothing to see here, nothing out of the ordinary, right? Because again, as soon as you launch something like Dirbuster, for example, or GoBuster, or Nikto, or even any other automated directory scanning tool, SQL Map is also another automated tool that a lot of people like to use. As soon as you start doing that, the response team is going to know that IP address right there, that's the one that's poking us really hard right now. Stop them immediately. And then your entire pen test will effectively get shut down almost immediately there, right? So you really want to be able to fly under the radar, like Chris suggested, and just pretend like you're another user, send the normal amount of requests, and you will fly under the radar very easily. So that's really what we're
just
really
to jump in that.
Yeah.
Keep in mind too, guys, like there are commercial companies. I know you're not in the industry yet, but there's like companies like Attack IQ, for example, that will go out and sell you a software platform that automates all of the automated tools to test for customers already anyway. What's really going to separate you guys if you want to go into pen testing is exactly that. Like there are tons of off the shelf, whether it's commercial, you're probably mostly experienced with the free tools right now. There are companies that just develop offensive security tools. And then of course, us on the defensive side, we're aware of all the stuff that they're doing and see it every single day. So, I mean, not a day goes by that I don't see some sort of automated tools in my customer environments. So again, kind of having your own method and not just using the off-the-shelf stuff is going to go a long way to being successful for you.
Yep. Yeah. So it is a little bit almost through like offensive security through obscurity in some capacity there, right? Instead of using all of these things that people have seen on a daily basis, you are using something that's maybe a little bit more custom, and that may help you actually get through a little bit further than you would have using something that people have just been seeing on a daily basis. So excellent. Great point.
And I also, this doesn't apply to industry, but more of a hint for NCL and like specifically, if a challenge says don't use automated tools, the challenge is designed around automating tools won't solve it. Like if you're using Durbuster on or just a random web challenge that says automated tools aren't allowed, that isn't going to help you at all. So you'll just be wasting your own time by scanning challenges that we say not to.
So yes, free hints right here.
All right, we've got an interesting question from Dora from Discord again. What does the infrastructure look like for a typical season, and what is the biggest infrastructure challenge?
Oh, that's really a juicy question right there. So we pay so much money to Jeff Bezos for AWS. Oh my God. So for infrastructure, every single season, I think like over the course of the weekend, somewhere between like 3,000 to 4,000 individuals will sign on to the platform. They'll play with the challenges, the ones that involve, for example, like a web server that you have to attack, or you're provided like an integrated terminal that you sign into. Those are all isolated environments that we spin up on demand across the board for each and every single individual. And so I think at some point there was like, I don't know, 20 or 30,000 different instances that we were running all concurrently. And so what really is super fascinating from our side is like when we first started doing this years ago, there was a lot of like just literally praying and hoping that the infrastructure doesn't go down, and that is not a great way to do infrastructure, because if you just pray and hope that it doesn't go down, it goes down. So some of the more veteran players here might have seen some issues, especially with the integrated terminals in the past. Over time, we've obviously started to see less and less of those particular kinds of problems. So what really basically makes the difference is being able to do just a lot of redundancy across the board. The web servers, the like cyberskyline.com, for example, is replicated like too many times to make sure that if one instance dies, you can still get redirected to another instance, and then it'll keep on spinning, and you'll keep on being able to load it. Again, the same thing happens to all the web challenges that you all do. If it dies, it'll automatically kickstart it back up if there's an issue, so that we can go to sleep at night for like 4 hours and wake up next morning and see that it's still up and running. So so as much as like I think David Zychek joked earlier about how much that was his team sleeping, we don't sleep a whole lot during the competition weekends either, right? We are up with you all. Some of you all will put in like a support ticket at 2 or 3 in the morning. It'll still get an answer, as because we're still up with you all actually to both make sure that your questions are being answered and that infrastructure is running smoothly and that there isn't any particular issues. So a lot of what we do on the infrastructure is just replication and replication and replication, and redundancy on redundancy on redundancy to make sure that it doesn't go down. It's just a giant cluster of interconnected machines. If you ever get a chance, especially if you're like a computer science major, or if you have networking classes at your school, learn about distributed computing. That is super, super fascinating. Like you learn about fault tolerance. And you'll also learn about like sharding, just how to get a bunch of systems online, have them all do something, and be able to service a very, very large client base without it going down, because that is the single biggest nightmare, is if your service ever goes down, now nobody is happy about it. So excellent question. I'm going to do more in-depth analysis on that, and maybe in the future talk. Draw some diagrams.
I've got one quick story, and then another follow-up question. My quick story is that in like V0, like basically the first year of the Cyber Skyline platform, there was a bug where if someone set use a special character in their team name, it would crash the server. But people did not really realize this because we had multiple instances of our server spun up, and the error was not triggering frequently enough. Where the server instance would crash, it would come back up again, and as long as the error didn't trigger fast enough, our server instances would keep coming back up before anyone noticed that there was downtime. Probably a very bad example of how you should handle redundancy, because you probably shouldn't have a special character killing your server instances, but redundancy is important, and we don't have that bug anymore, thankfully. But fun story as to why you want to have some redundancy.
There's just so many like good lessons that you learn as you go through. Like, so again, from our side here, for us, we're trying to make sure that all of these things are all seemingly perfectly working all at the same time, and that in itself is sort of our CTF challenge for the weekend, right? So as you are solving these various different CTF challenges, our challenge on our side is to make sure that they're up and running. And it's also really fun on the other end is that afterwards we do also do a decent amount of like forensics on the logs that we collect over the weekend there as well, just to make sure that nobody did anything super fishy, and that no one didn't, for example, try to attack us. And we do that generally over the weekend there as well. Some stuff automated, some stuff which requires manual review. So we are effectively applying some of the same CTF skill set directly back onto our experience running the CTF there as well. So it's very, very interesting.
And I've got a talk about infrastructure. I had a question for Chris. When you all are helping a new customer, I suppose one of the first things you're doing is trying to understand what infrastructure do they have. What does that process look like? And I imagine it's is that process different for like a smaller customer versus like a much larger customer?
Oh yeah, man, you get all sorts of things. We look for what the high value targets are, right? So I used to work with a good example, a retail chain across all of North America. Their crown jewels was their jewelry software. They would do all the inventory of all their fine jewelry.
Literally crown jewel.
Yeah, literally. The problem is it ran on Windows Server 2003. So most modern security stuff couldn't do much for it. So having to build a security strategy around that was a pain. In other environments, they're entirely cloud. It's all containers. Your approach there is going to be slightly different in terms of what tooling you're going to use and what logging capabilities you have in the cloud versus on-prem. Their business model. Like right now, I'm working with some insurance companies. It's open enrollment season, so they all have change freezes. It's about to be Black Friday. There's going to be change freezes for all of retail to where, like, even if a big attack happened right now, it's very difficult to put stuff on the crown jewels because the business is more concerned about making sure, we just talked about uptime. They don't want cash registers failing on Black Friday because they pushed a security update or something like that. So, evaluating what's the most important in every customer environment is wildly different depending on their business vertical, as well as their knowledge. Some customers, you would think, again, people would know their own environment. A lot of times they don't actually even know what they have and what's important. So security professionals like myself and hopefully all of you are going to be the ones that actually can go in there and tell them, hey guys, you really want to pay attention to these devices. These are the ones that are going to bring your whole business down.
Prioritization is really the key there.
Oh, absolutely. Did I answer the question? I mean, I can go deeper, talk about that all day. That's part of what we do all the time.
I mean, we've got. Oh man, there's still questions in here. All right, we'll
Yeah.
take a couple more questions, and then I think we'll just hang around and banter for as long as people are willing to stay up on here. I know Chris, we've been keeping you for a while, so we'll take like one or two more questions, and please drop off if you've got to go. But one of the questions that I am seeing here is Solo Spice from Discord is asking, can we cover how Paper Trail was supposed to be done?
So Paper Trail, that particular challenge, if you weren't familiar with it, was the one with like the €0, not dollar, €0 bill. That we had suggested that one was like a counterfeit bill. So fun fact, €0 bills exist as a commemorative bill, but in the context of that particular challenge scenario is that this bill was a counterfeit one, and we're trying to identify some metadata about how that bill was printed out. So with that particular challenge, we gave you effectively a scan of that bill that we claim is counterfeit right there. So the questions that get asked there, again, with all the challenges, they are in itself hints towards how you should solve the challenge there. So the question there asks things like, when did this bill get printed? It also asks things like, what is the printer's like serial number, right? So from those two particular attributes alone, what you can really do is start to identify what would give me that information. Is it looking at the image metadata? Well, that doesn't really quite make sense, right? If this is like a scan of the bill itself, you wouldn't necessarily get image data about that physical piece of paper. So what would really make sense here is to start identify, are there any sort of digital or some sort of physical artifacts that gets added to a printed piece of paper? And that is few Google searches away that'll bring you to something that's called the machine identification code. So if you go on to Google and like Wikipedia or something, it'll sort of describe in detail. The best source for that is actually the EFF. They have very thoroughly went through and investigated what the machine identification code is, and also how to decode it as well. So there's a whole document that surrounds this particular topic. The short of it is that there are a lot of these hidden and invisible to your naked eyes dots that gets also printed onto laser printers. This is a effort allegedly by the U.S. government to identify potential counterfeiters for bills specifically, because when color printers were first being introduced, the Secret Service is actually very concerned about people producing counterfeit bills using these color printers, because they would be able to produce very compelling counterfeit bills with that. So they have worked with, allegedly worked with a lot of these manufacturers to then include these printer identification code dots onto the papers that get printed out, and they can only be examined, generally speaking, under a microscope. Now, if for the sake of this particular challenge, we obviously didn't have you all examine a piece of paper under microscope. We included it as part of the image. You have to zoom in very far, and you're able to see a sequence of dots on there. So if you didn't get that one, on the very bottom left corner of the bill, there's a section there with some yellow dots that are blended in. Not the yellow dots that exist in a regular euro bill on the sides, but on the very bottom left corner, there is a section of yellow dots that you can see, and you can utilize the technique that the EFF describes there in order to decode that. And so that particular one would be done like that. We thought that one was particularly interesting just because it's a very different type of forensics that you would be doing in a digital environment. This is something that's more of like a combination of both like digital techniques and also just some good old-fashioned paper-based forensics. So when we found that out originally, like, that's super interesting. I think it's literally been in our queue to do for like literally 4 or 5 years, and eventually we finally decided this is the year that we're going to do it now. Chris, do you all actually do any like non-digital based forensics?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, the closest used to be we would like take physical hard
Yeah.
drives, but I mean, even then you run them through digital. But no, not that I'm aware of. There are companies I've worked with that do a little bit more than this, but no, I don't think
Yeah,
CrowdStrike does.
gotcha. Yeah, so I mean, a lot of the forensics work that y'all do are like digital that involve like disk images and like trying to extract information from those, right?
Yeah, and the IR
Yeah.
side, absolutely. One thing that's really cool about Falcon is it's going to collect all the telemetry as every process runs, every network connection, all that. So we can actually do that all in real time through our platform. But if we're doing like a retroactive look back, or you didn't have Falcon installed, then yeah, we'll take disk images as necessary, or whatever forensic artifacts we can get.
Yeah, and yeah, that was reflected sort of in some of the other more digital focused forensic challenges that we have, like literally examining like NTFS and disk images, or we also had one that was surrounding like ZFS, for example, as well. That Connor actually had made on that one. So yeah, lots of very applicable stuff going into the real world there. Excellent.
And logs. You're gonna love the
logs. Yeah, and I mean that is, you know, you're 100% on point. That's why we have things like log analysis. I know somebody actually on Discord was asking earlier about, you know, how do we actually come up with the various different categories that we have there, right? So you have things like OSINT, log analysis, network traffic analysis, forensics, web application security, enumeration exploitation, scanning and recon. We also have cryptography in there as well, password cracking. Like these categories weren't kind of like created out of thin air. Franz explained in the Discord that it's, for one, originally actually derived from the CompTIA certification exam for Security Plus. Some of the objectives that you that they wanted to cover on the Security Plus certification. We've since then also incorporated the NICE workforce framework into sort of how we're guiding ourselves in terms of creating these challenges. So again, we're really looking at what do people do out there, and then we're bringing that back into the categories there, so that we can show everybody maybe something novel, or maybe help people just get to know and learn about something new there, for example.
And pretty much every one of those categories you mentioned could basically be a career on its own, right? Like you could specialize in just about any of those and spend the rest of your life focused and becoming the best you can at, whether it's log analysis, working in a SIM, building, you know, content creation for security rules there with logs. You could be, you know, firewall admin that knows everything about your network, endpoint specialist. There's so many different directions you guys can go. So if you ever feel like, you know, you're going through this and there's one area that you're weak at, don't worry about it. And you guys were talking about C and assembly earlier. I'll be honest, I don't know any of that. I haven't had to, fortunately, up to this point in my career, but I have other people on my team that do know it. Don't ever feel like, you know, because you're weak in one area, you're not going to be able to make it or cut it. There are tons of specializations and areas of focus that if you find something you really like, put your energy in that. And odds are there is a job and a professional path for you in that particular direction.
Yeah, then that's a very good point, actually, Chris. I think a lot of people, especially when you're first starting off in this field, they feel like I have to know everything before I can even start getting an internship. I have to know all of it. I need to start on my day one of my internship, literally knowing just every single facet of cybersecurity, right? So, and can you just echo how untrue that is?
Yeah, what you really need to know is how to Google. And what I mean by that isn't just to look for Google for answers, but understand problem solving ability is going to be way more important than actually knowing everything about everything. You're going to look at logs, and when there's going to be new tools, there's going to be new technologies, there's going to be new attacks that nobody's going to know about. How you go through your thought process and solve problems is far more important than knowing the X's and O's and every fine detail of all these fundamentals. There is a core competency you need to have. I want to make that clear. Like, you want to learn as much as you can, obviously, but at the same time, like, there's a lot of things you guys have talked about. I'll be honest today, I probably wouldn't do as well as some of you did on this challenge. And maybe there's some of you that didn't do well on the challenge for whatever reason. That doesn't make you any better or worse. It's just a measuring stick up against this particular challenge. Out in the real world, it can be very different, right? I know people that all they do is they specialize in email security. They love looking at phishing emails, and they love, you know, seeing those threat vectors and helping build stronger email filters for companies like Proofpoint and Mimecast. There's people that work at CrowdStrike that all they want to do is reverse engineer malware for the rest of their lives. Well, more power to them. Let's get them in there and make sure they do that.
Yeah.
So don't ever get down. I can promise you, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I just like to ask questions and learn, and that's what I would encourage all of you guys to do too.
Yeah, really, really great advice there, Chris, for everybody. And again, to echo Chris's point here, yeah, across the board, just identify what it is that you like and or that you also happen to be good at. Go out there, start looking for internships, start looking for opportunities, and then just see what you can get and start doing things, working for a company or for an organization. Maybe it's at a nonprofit, maybe it's at your state level, local level, governments that might require some cybersecurity assistance. I know, especially at the state and local government level, there is a significant demand and need for cybersecurity professionals, and that could be a place that you start as well. So, don't jump out the pool and say like, oh, I have to know everything. I got to go work for like the Google and the CrowdStrikes, and not to pat Chris's back here too much, but you don't have to feel like I have to work for the most notable organizations out there. Start somewhere and start. That's way better than not at all, right? Just find your niche, find what you're passionate about, and start. So,
and I'll kind of boost what Chris said about maybe you didn't do as well as you wanted, and that's perfectly fine. Something that we always try to remind people is that getting into cybersecurity, getting into this career, it's a journey, and everyone has to start somewhere. Everyone's a beginner. Yeah. So whether or not you're coming into NCL and getting a 25% or a 50% or a 75% or not, whatever the percentage is, that is it's not a representation of like who you are as a person. It's a representation of what you know today. And getting a 25% in NCL means that's 75% of stuff for you to learn. It doesn't mean that you're bad. It means that you're still learning, and there's a lot to learn. And don't let that discourage you. Actually, you should be using that as your motivation, right? All right, this is a 25%. I definitely know. What's the next thing that I want to work on to chip away and gain that 75% that I didn't solve yet?
Yeah, and to touch on actually the point that Franz is making right now is that like a lot of people I feel like treat the NCL as a standardized test. If you don't get over like a 90%, you're not getting an A. Look at the score distribution. There's very few people that get that 90% category, right? This is not a standardized test at all whatsoever. We do not expect for everybody to go and like say get 90% plus and everybody get A's on it, because it's not what this is. It's not a standardized test. It's a way for you to find out this is what you like, this is maybe what you don't like, this is what you're good at, and maybe this is what you're not good at. And then you can decide for yourself, do I want to keep on working on that? Maybe I just really don't like it and I don't want to have anything to do with it, right? Like if you really hate doing taxes, you're not going to want to do taxes for a living, and that's okay. You pay an accountant to do your taxes. Like Chris said, if he doesn't enjoy doing reverse engineering or whatnot, that's fine. He focuses on something else, and there's someone else on his team that will focus on doing reverse engineering, right? And that's sort of also the reason why we have the individual game and the team game, so that you all can see this is how I can do as an individual, myself solo. Here's what I can accomplish, and here's what I know, here's what I like, and then that's great. And then on the team game, here's how you can work in a team environment, taking advantage of each other's strengths and skill sets there. So that's why those two exist. If you ever wondered why do we have these two different games during an NCL season there. So excellent stuff here.
And we're now kind of getting close to the full hour here for our Q&A. So I don't want to hold us here for the whole night. So Chris, I will kind of just pass it on to you. Do you have some advice, some suggestions for people who are learning cybersecurity right now? They're still a student and they're trying to figure out, how do I go and get a job and break into the industry? What advice would you give them to set themselves up for success so that it's an easy transition going from the classroom into the workforce?
Yeah, I can tell you, you guys are already a step ahead. The fact that you're doing Cyber Skyline today and doing the NCL challenges is awesome. just to give you some anecdotes of how these numbers and things don't matter. I graduated with a 2.2 GPA. It took me 10 years to get my bachelor's in cybersecurity. I didn't know what I was doing in my 20s. Went out and had too much fun. Made a lot of life mistakes. Stuff. It happens, guys. Like, you don't have to hit perfect scores on everything to get in. It's what you make of the opportunities that are put in front of you. As far as how to get in, I actually recommend going the startup route if you can, or being open to opportunities that are put in front of you. Don't be closed-minded and say like, oh, well, this job says it's going to be XYZ, therefore I'm absolutely going to rule it out. I mean, a lot of the times on-the-job experience is going to just give you way more than I think you realize it until you actually get in the field. There's a lot of things like I've talked about today that you won't know until you're in an enterprise or in a corporate environment. There's a huge difference between the world of academia in security and the actual real world cybersecurity, if that makes sense. Right now, a lot of these attacks and these scenarios that you go through are in vacuums almost, right? They're very specific environments that are designed for these sort of things to happen. I mentioned earlier, like I've seen multi-billion-dollar conglomerates choose to ignore threats or to not put in security practices because they have real business decisions that they have to make that impact the bottom lines of both their business and all their employees. So there are a lot of other factors that are going to come into it in the real world once you get out there as well. To go back to what I said, startup I recommend because you're going to learn a lot very quickly. A lot of times they don't have as many people as they might necessarily need to, so that gives you the opportunity to kind of grow in whatever direction you want, to take on additional responsibilities. As that company grows, you grow with them. I would also recommend, if possible, try to work for a security provider versus an internal security team. And what I mean by that is I started in what's called an MSSP, Managed Security Service Provider. So we did security for other customers. The reason I recommend it is you get to work on multiple environments. So fresh out of college, I worked with every major SIM that was out there, every major firewall, every major EDR platform. And sure, like it was a fire hose and you get completely doused with information, but you can soak that all up and learn a lot more, a lot quicker. Whereas if you go work at one individual company and their security team, you'll know that company very well and what their tool set is and what their policies are. But that's just one company. And as you start to get more security experience, you're going to see the security posture of every organization out in the world. It can be very different and very broad. The last thing I'll say, because I know I'm talking quite a lot here, is just be persistent. I'm currently going through the hiring process right now, and I talk with candidates all the time, both collegiate and experience. I know it can be frustrating. Sometimes companies still have a legacy mindset when it comes to hiring processes, getting through the resume filters, getting through the interviews and stuff. I've worked with lots of other hiring managers, and the reality is, whether it's in cybersecurity or really in any position, hiring is still super subjective. And a lot of the times, they already had somebody lined up that they knew they were going to hire. Maybe there was a particular requirement they were looking for that they didn't tell you. Don't let somebody telling you no or turning you down discourage you from continuing to apply. I probably went through 20 or 30 interviews before I got my first opportunity and made the most of it. And I've been able to advance very rapidly since I got in here. So don't get discouraged when you get that first no. Many of us go through that, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's a couple no's, right? It's going to happen. Yeah. Just continue to push yourself forward and you'll get there eventually.
Great advice, Chris. Thank you so much for that. And if you're somebody that is looking for a job, Chris said he's going through interview right now. Are you still hiring?
Yeah, I've got 2 more. If anyone out there has any experience doing implementations of software security tools in particular, we are indeed hiring for what I call a technical engagement lead. Honestly, guys, even if you don't have the experience, the last time I talked with NCL, I was happy to do some conversations with people as follow-ups. Feel free, my name's on here. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. Send me a message. I'm happy to talk one-on-one if there's anything I can help, or maybe there's questions I couldn't answer here. I'm happy to be a resource for you guys. Can't promise employment necessarily, but I do want to give back to the community and help any way I can. So let me know what I can do to help support you guys. And like I said, just by being here and participating the way you are right now, you're already a step ahead of the competition. So continue to put that effort out there, and I think you'll see a pretty big return on your investment in time.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight, Chris. We won't take any more of your evening. So I hope you have a great weekend. And then the rest of us, we'll still stay on for a little bit and just kind of wrap up our conversations here. Thank you again, Chris, for joining.
Thanks, everybody. Best of luck to you. Take care, and hopefully we'll all talk again soon. See you.
Excellent. Take care. Yeah. So let's see. I want to also see if Tristan and Connor here. Any general kind of topics you all wanted to briefly discuss here? Any particular challenge you wanted to share? Highlight?
I don't know.
I can always go through more of the questions.
Yeah. So okay. So yeah, one of the questions. Yeah, Connor.
I mean, it's not to highlight, but just like shout out Austin for making those 2 really cool reversing challenges this year.
Yes. So yeah, so if there's actually a question in here about who makes the challenges or how can we join and work at Cyber Skyline to make challenges. So actually, let's talk about that one here. Let's talk about that one because this one, the two that we have on here right now, and also Austin Tice, former NCL player, reached out to us and wanted to make some challenges. We were like, excellent, bring it on, let's go. So let's very quickly, not to put you on the spot too much, Connor, feel free to share whatever you want to share. So how did you get your job at Cyber Skyline here?
Okay, so I'm sure like a lot of other people, I was fresh out of college, and this was right as COVID was starting. And so this is kind of where a lot of companies went on a hiring freeze or said that they were hiring and then weren't or anything. So I was months down the line, hundreds of applications out, like multiple interviews, and I hadn't gotten anything. And I had actually reached out to Franz, I believe, saying like, hey, do you have any contacts of someone that like I could potentially get interviews with? And he set me up with someone, and that didn't work out. I don't think I even got a response. But then like a week or 2 after that, he says like, hey, are you actually interested in a job with us? And I'm like, yeah. So some like context prior to the job, I had done NCL for 2 or 3 years, I think. I don't even remember. Fun fact, and we're going to brag a little bit here. My very first NCL, I was on the winning team. We got first place, CSU Chico. Shout out to them and David Zychek. So that was a really fun experience. But so just like reaching out, and I interviewed with Toby and Franz. And that was actually just a fun process, actually. I had actually learned a lot in just the interview process, and I have learned a lot since joining. I think I've improved quite a bit.
We are literally paying him to say this, though, so keep that in mind. This is one of those times where we're literally paying him to say this, but I mean, yeah. So exactly like Connor mentioned there, right? Like he was looking for jobs, and it's just a lot of the times it's at the right moment, the right people, and just the right set of circumstances. Like at the time, actually, we were hiring, and then Connor showed up with software experience, and also obviously it really helps when you have participating in NCL before, because you know generally how we run and operate, for example, the NCL. And what we'll usually do is have you also then run and operate the NCL as a result of it, right? So that's been Connor's experience. Tristan, do you want to talk about your experience in how you wound up with us, a bunch of miserable people? I'm kidding.
I met the right people at the right time would be like the best way I can think to put it. Because I started doing stuff for the player ambassadors, and I said that I wanted to make challenges, and then Kate was like, hey, like, I don't know if she reached out to you, Toby, or Franz, but then I started doing that while I was in high school under like basically like an internship.
Yep. So yeah. Yeah, Kate did indeed reach out to me, and I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Why not?
So in my case, it really is. You can like go through like all like the job applications, but a lot of it is like, and that you can even see from Connor, is just kind of like talking to the right people.
Yeah.
Like go now that the world is kind of like more open, go to like conferences and like meet people. Like, yeah, that's all I can really think of, is like just meet a bunch of people. You never know when someone's gonna need help.
Yeah, exactly. Because I know a lot of people out there will tell folks like, go out, network with people, and I feel like when I was in college, at least, like when adults were telling me go and network, I'm like, what does that mean, right? So what does it mean to go and network? Fundamentally, I want to kind of like try to break it down for people if you're not familiar with how to go and network. Show up to events, introduce yourself to someone, ask them what they do. And then, because people love talking about themselves, ask them what they do. And then that's how you learn about, oh, this is a role that exists out in the industry. And then that's how you start to at least like forge a connection with this particular individual. And then potentially they might have career opportunities. They may be able to become a mentor. They may be able to provide some direction, like, oh, go talk to this other person. Maybe if you're interested in these other kinds of things, they may be able to then make introductions for you. That's what these career counselors and your professors, maybe mom and dad, is referring to when they're saying like, go out and network with these people. It's literally just starting some conversations there, and then just getting to understand what it is that they do, and then how maybe one day you might be able to do that as well. Or you might say, oh yeah, I absolutely do not want to do that. Goodbye, next person. Let's talk to somebody else, right? And that's perfectly fine. Again, it's all about discovering what it is that you like to do. And if you don't like to do it, don't do it. it's that simple, right? Again, just go out and start asking people, hey, oh, you work at so and so, what is it that you do at so and so, right? And then talk about that. And again, if the interest there happens to align, then you say, oh yeah, I'm super interested in getting into that too. Maybe talk about some of the classes that you're working on, some of the projects that you're working on that's really relevant there. And then because then that's how you start indicating to people that you are super passionate about this field, right? If you've got extracurriculars, maybe you do cybersecurity competitions. My goodness, talk about cybersecurity competitions, especially if you're trying to get into this particular industry. That's like an immediate check mark in a lot of people's minds, is you're somebody that does cyber competitions, because that's already, like Chris said earlier, going above and beyond most standard college students already. So just do that.
To add on to that, from my experience interviewing, I was coming from not really having any professional experience. I didn't have any internships or anything. But a huge part of my resume was NCL. And in my interviews, the people interviewing me were always super interested in that. And like the whole interview can be based around NCL and talking about your experiences and the type of things you learn from that. So it's definitely really helpful. If you don't have NCL on your resume, throw it on there. It'll really help out.
I want to throw in 3 pieces of advice. I've given the first piece of advice pretty frequently when I meet students. When you're looking to get a job in general, you want to convert yourself from a piece of paper or PDF into a person. So when you apply on a job board, you are a PDF or a Word doc amongst 200 PDFs or Word docs that are going to show up in someone's folder. And when you're coming from that position, it's extremely difficult to be, you have like a 0.5% chance of actually getting that job. The way that you increase those odds is that you go and meet someone. They're like, oh, I know you. I would prefer to hire someone that I know versus like a piece of paper that I don't even like know, like who they are as a person. I don't know what their interests are. I don't know if they would be a good fit here. Like I don't have any of that information. You need to convert yourself from that PDF to being a person. The second thing I'd say, a little bit kind of where Connor was going, is that like if you are kind of unsure of how to do the networking, and trying to like get to know people and meet people, talk about your NCL experience. If you go to a meetup and you meet someone who's like working as a SOC analyst, right? You take Toby's advice. You ask them, "What do you do?" They talk about, "Oh, I am a SOC analyst. I use Splunk. I use these different tools." If you've done NCL and you've done log analysis, you should have the commonality there, right? You should be able to ask them intelligent questions about what it's like working in a SOC because you've solved some of those same challenges. You can also share about your experiences, right? This is a log file that I had to analyze for NCL, and like I was able to identify the hacker, and I ran these queries in Splunk, or I wrote a script to analyze it for me. Those experiences that you get in NCL are just so valuable in that converting yourself to a person component. NCL is definitely great to put yourself there on the resume, but then as Connor said, the thing that's really impactful then is like show it on your resume and then go talk about it in the interview. Whenever you have the opportunity to meet someone in this industry and you're not sure what to talk about, like find the commonality between what do they do and what did you do in NCL, and that's the easy way to start a conversation, because I know it can be really daunting sometimes trying to talk to people that you like. You know, this person's got a career in the industry. I'm still a student. What the heck are we going to talk about? The weather? Like, no. You can have something a little bit more substantive. You've got commonalities in your interests and what you know how to do. And to answer this question more specifically, someone asking here, how do you work at Cyber Skyline or make a challenge? Take our advice about converting yourself into a person and networking. Be active in our community. We knew Connor because he was active in the CSU Chico Club, and the CSU Chico Club was very much into NCL, and we knew them because of the participation in NCL, and they were talking to us, and they were they had those lines of communications. Tristan just went above and beyond and joined the player ambassadors and started contributing, like building resources, building materials, making blog posts, joining us for some live streams. Being someone that really stands out in the community and giving back in that way, that's the way that you establish those connections and help us get to know you. I mean, we have a lot of NCL players. We want to know who you are. Again, I don't like just knowing people as PDFs. I like knowing people as people. And so show us that you're a person. Be active on the Discord, show up to our events. Asking questions in the chat is great. All those different types of things. That's kind of like how you go about doing that. Someone asked us on Discord earlier, like, how do I apply for a job? We don't have any current openings right now, but we may have like an software engineering role opening up in the short term. So if you are interested, shoot your resume to us at our email. I'll make it an OSI challenge for you all to figure out how to get our email. If you can't figure that out, it's probably not a good fit. I'm sorry, but it's part of the interview process. Figure out what email address you can use to send us your resume. I hope that was helpful.
An easy level.
That'll be your easy level OSI challenge to find the email address. I really sincerely hope that is not a tough challenge. But yeah, like hopefully that advice was helpful. Like, whether or not you want to work at Cyber Skyline or anywhere else, like that's supposed to be kind of generic advice. That definitely applies to any other companies too, right? If you got a company you really want to work for, like, ask yourself, how do I meet people who are there? How do I connect with them? Maybe they have a Discord channel of their own. I know a lot of companies do like open houses, game nights, like show up to those, meet people that way. You don't have to like think that the only way you can network is through some very serious like career fair. There are a lot of other ways to network and meet people.
Yeah, I guess, again, some way to make yourself stand out, especially to maybe like the recruiter or maybe like the technical individual that always shows up to, say, like a career fair that's local to your school or whatever, because then you start building, like, you put your face to the name on that piece of paper, that piece of PDF, right? So when they click on, say, toby.pdf, they can in their head imagine this face, and then they can start kind of understanding you as a person there. So it's not just us. Recruiters want this too. I remember when I was in college, like there was a couple of recruiters at like the companies that I really wanted to work at the time. Like the recruiters remembered me the year after I came back and like they were able to like say, you're hang on, don't say it, you're Toby, right? I'm like, I am so surprised that you remember me. It was just because I struck up a conversation with them for like a solid 15 or 20-ish minutes the year before, just asking them, what do y'all do? And for some reason that was memorable to that particular recruiter, right? And it's not like a secret sauce or something. It's just talk to them. And then on the off chance that you become super memorable to them, perfect. Now, it doesn't work every time, obviously. I have plenty of recruiters that don't remember me year after year, but of the ones that did, I actually went on to intern at that particular company that very following year, this summer, actually. So just, give it a shot. Don't be afraid of, being rejected. I've been rejected. Franz has been rejected. Connor has been rejected. Actually, Tristan, have you ever been?
Yes.
Possibly. Yeah. See?
Yeah.
We've all been rejected. Every single one of us here. Right? And it's fine. It's fine. Turned out all right. So yeah, just don't be afraid to just put yourself out there. It's scary, I know. It was super scary again for all of us starting out. But again, once you start to understand sort of how to exploit the process here, right? Get to understand how this process works, find the vulnerabilities and exploit it. And the exploitations here is literally talking to people. That's your exploit. So run those exploits.
I think a small thing is if you are afraid or not sure exactly where to start, your professor, I am sure you're probably close with in some way or another, most likely has some industry experience and or they know someone that does. So start with someone that you know and see if they can help you reach out to other people.
Pro tip for those that are like under 18 and like, you can't sign an NDA, don't bother trying to find an internship. That is where you will go down mass paths of rejection like I did. Sometimes you can't find an internship, but the best way to actually do it, because most companies aren't willing to go through like the legal crap, just volunteer, because that's how you will meet people. And then come time that you are old enough that you can sign an NDA, it will be a lot easier to.
Yep. Yeah. And also for those who are in high school and whatnot, there's a lot of like state and local and also some federal agencies that have specific internships that are designed for high school students. I know NIH, so I live in Maryland, so I'm going to state a few agencies around in Maryland. National Institutes of Health, they do internships. They'll bring in people from all over the country, so you don't have to live in Maryland to do this. National Institutes of Standards and Technology has a thing called SHIP, Summer High School Internship Program. Yes, SHIP. That will, again, bring in high school students from all over the country to both Maryland and also out to Colorado to do internships. And you can try to find those. And state and local governments also very often have these kinds of internships that are specifically available for high school students as well. So you just got to seek those out. So you may not be able to say like go work at a company, for example, but a lot of times like government organizations will have internships available as well. Reach out to your local representative. You'd be really surprised sometimes that they would be really, really helpful, depending on your representative, however. So there's because I know folks who literally just all they did was like call their representative, and somebody at the congressional office there just happened to also know somebody. Again, this is the same concept: right time, right circumstances. People happen to know the right people, and then that's it. That's the vulnerability there. Everybody, talk to people. So please do that. So. That being said, I think that's a good place to kind of wrap it up. We again continue some of these discussions both on our Slack and on our Discord channels there. So feel free to reach out and just do all the things that we have mentioned. So otherwise, I think this has been a phenomenal season for all of us involved here. And I just want to say thank you all for participating. Thank you all for being here. For being in the games and then showing up to everything in Spirit Week. I know you probably heard like Em and Franz say that like 20 times over now, but thank you all for just supporting us, and thank you all for playing. And we'll see each other very soon once again. January 30th is when registration starts for the spring season. We actually don't even get that much time to prepare, so we actually gotta get started now. So we'll sign off and get started on working for the spring season while you all prepare for whatever the spring season brings. And like I said, stay current on the trends. Keep engaged in the Discord over the winter right here, especially if you've got some off time. Chat up with people, chat with us, and yeah, that's it. Connor, Tristan, any closing thoughts there from you all?
No.
Excellent. Franz, that's it.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Hope you enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you next season. Bye.